travelers, and welcome to the Way of the Showman, where we view the world through the lens of showmanship. I am Captain Frodo, and I will be your host and your guide along the way. As we explore the philosophy of Freakshow, we continue to explore it with Maria Sienicka. So, those of you who listened in last week, you know that this goes deep into what it means to be a monster, what it means to be a freak. Not to be that as a true part of your nature, but to highlight and present those things about you that can be presented and made monstrous. How is this done? We explore today. And this time, and in the next following 2 episodes, the tables have turned. The questions are now being steered by Anna, as she asks these questions, and I take it something similar to these questions are being asked to other different people around the fringes of the freak show world. So I'm not going to go on as much as I did last week about this, but it's worth mentioning here again that this episode is filled with triggering content because we are talking about freak show. And at the center stage of the freak show, we have the strange and the beautiful in the freaky way. So if you are easily offended or you're easily triggered, then this might not be the episode for you. As they say when they invite you into the freak show, this is not for the faint of heart. But know that we are good at heart in these discussions. So I hope you enjoy it. And if you do enjoy The Way of the Showman, please support the podcast by clicking support. If you have it in you to write a review, or even just click 5 stars on whatever podcast app you have. It really helps, particularly on iTunes. It helps. It helps people find us. So all of that's free for you. Very meaningful to me. So let's jump into the freaky world of Freak Show with Maria. But let it be noted that unlike me, who have no credentials except for standing in front of an audience for a very long time, Maria Sienicka is a PhD student writing about freak show and monsters, and she is a lecturer in philosophy, a professor at Paris Nanterre University. So you know now that this has some credibility, which freaks like me certainly need.
Do you see me? Do you hear me?
I see you and I hear you.
Ah, perfect.
Very good.
Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. So, tell me about your PhD
yes,
project.
I'm working on freak shows in the field of philosophy, aesthetics specifically, and I try to see if there is something very specific about the freak show art, something that is very different from, for example, the art of the magician, the art of clowning, something that would be intrinsic to the freak show, to the sideshow. So I'm trying to get in touch with many performers to see what they have to tell me about their performances, their experiences, and how is the freak show scene today. Those kind of things. So I have many questions because I've been listening to your podcast for the last few days.
Oh yeah.
So I have somehow a strange parasocial relationship with you now.
yeah. Sometimes it's wonderful. I did when I started the podcast. One of the goals was to come out as a thinker, because I think about all these things, but it normally only came out through conversations. But to collect the ideas. And anyway, what it has afforded me, because this has worked, because now when I talk to people, sometimes we can jump straight into these bigger questions or so, because as you maybe know as well, or you know, but when it comes to circus or freak show, maybe even more so, the people who engage in it are often not so philosophically inclined.
Yes, and I think you've said in your podcast that you have a background in philosophy.
Well, very, very small. academically very small. In Norway, to get into the historical philosophical faculty to study at university, which I went to in 1995, I think. I did a course in philosophy, history, and it's like a history and philosophy of science, and so it's an introductory course to the historical faculty. It's a one semester thing, so you take philosophy, history, philosophy of science, Thomas Kuhn and Karl Popper and all of this, and logics and a few things like this. And this is the preparatory course, and I was supposed to then afterwards go in, and I wanted to study comparative religion, as it was called then. So I'm interested in religion and interested in mythology or whatever. But I applied to go back to university and do that. But in the meantime, some friends were going to do a circus course in England, and we were already doing shows. But then I went and did that, and from there on we did street shows, and then I started doing street shows more, and I never went back to my studies. The closest I've gotten was that when the pandemic came and I came back to Norway, I applied to do an online course of history of ideas. I don't know if that's what it's called in French or whatever, but this is a study course or so. It's not quite philosophy, it's somewhere in between. But the course, because everybody wanted to study online in the pandemic, the course was full. And because I am in my 40s, I guess they gave the spaces to the people who are getting an education now. Anyway, but that said, I am still very interested in philosophy. Currently, I have been, the last couple of years, been getting into process philosophy. So I did followed a lecture course. It's like 20 lectures or so about Henri Bergson. And currently I'm trying to read my way through process and philosophy, process and reality by Alfred North Whitehead. But it's a very tricky book.
So I have some questions that are really philosophically inclined, so I think you won't be in foreign land with my questions. So I have many of them, so we'll see how it goes. And my first question would be, I've seen that there's been a great recent resurgence of the interest in freak shows and side shows, and I wanted to ask your opinion. Who are the new freaks today?
This is a very interesting question. I mean, when you have a resurgence, it is usually you're bringing back from the past and somehow recontextualizing it. And in a sense, it's like what the new freaks of today. You always, when you're doing the freak shows, they're always trying to push the boundaries. And in a way, there's almost no boundaries which has not already been pushed in the past. As an example, I do one act where I put cans and put on top of each other. So it starts with a big one, a smaller and smaller. And then I sit on the top of this. So it's like 2 meters high or whatever. And I put both of my legs behind my head and I balance on top. And this trick I've seen, it's a yoga move to sit on the ground with your legs behind your head and balance on your bum. But I had never seen someone do what I did. And then I saw some pictures of people who did sit on an object in a freak show performance context. But then the other day, a friend, Niels Juncker, who publishes books about juggling and so on specific, but he's interested in the history of performance, found a picture from the 1930s with no name or whatever, but a man sitting on the stack of cans. Not big like mine, but tall and skinny, just like mine. So that was the last piece that I thought, this was my invention. I mean, it was my invention, but it had been invented before. So that was just an example of how. So what are the freaks of today? I mean, it's so hard because I think, like, I don't have a specific group. But my thought goes to Robert Bogdan in his book Freakshow. You might know this book.
Yeah.
And he talks about aggrandization and how it is you make yourself into a freak by highlighting a certain feature of yourself. So when I first joined, really got into the Freakshow world, there was a woman there who identified as a woman, but presented also strongly like a male, but she had breasts, so she was presented as a kind of hermaphrodite in this show. So this thing, like, which is big at the moment in what both they're fighting for their rights, but they're also being ostracized by the right, and the left is pushing in different directions. So gender issues, just on how one presents oneself. I find this to be material or something that we have seen within freak shows already. That was coming in the 80s, but it goes all the way back. I mean, you see, what's her name, Josephine something, who was in the Freaks movie by Todd Browning, for instance. So this half and half or so has been presented in there. So when it comes down to it, to make it an easy thing, I don't know who the freaks are today, because you can kind of still make anyone into freaks. And it's interesting, like, what is the goal of the freak show? It's to touch you the most. And one thing that I commented on when I was talking with a friend of mine who does work, circus work, with circus-related work with a dance troupe of Aboriginals, Australian First Nation people, and we had a conversation where I was going in the revival of all the freak acts that happened in the mid-90s, and that sort of had a resurgence again when we were doing Freak Show at like early 2000s or so, that decade. The thing which was not revived, but which was common everywhere, was to have First Nation people in cages. Yeah. And today, if you wanted to shock and get on the front page and everything, then these hot button topics of gender and of race, which sends people into an explosion straight away. I think that in the past, or that this is this scary area of not knowing, or so it's like when things are unclear or so. This area is the freak show does well in this area. And also I think that the core thing that freak shows do is to hit you not so much in the head, but to hit you in the emotions in the strongest possible way. When things are too strong to be in the circus, they have to be in the freak show. In the circus, you can have the beautiful lady with the stockings and everything, but if it goes any further in presenting sexuality, it needs to go into the freak show, kind of. And you can have dangerous or scary things, but if it goes one step beyond into the really stuff that hits you in the gut, I think it belongs in the freak show. And for today, who the freaks are of today, I think it would be whatever would push those buttons and whoever dares to go into those territories. And I'm not suggesting that one should go into race or into gender, but they are issues which I think would then all of a sudden get freak show on the front page of the paper again. So But that is not to say that those things are in any way a freak show thing. But if we're looking for the new, then most of the time it's a bringing back from the past. Because the guy that I spoke to, Josh Bond, who runs the Jukimala, where he works with this dance performance troupe in Australia, he was interested in exploring this. Because there's some incredible literature of what happened to some of these Aboriginal people who traveled around. And just like in Robert Brogdon's book, how he describes a story of somebody who goes to see the freak show and they meet a black man, a Zulu nation crazy, but then they go, oh, it's Mr. Johnson from down here. But he had just taken a job in this freak show, and then he goes from being just a guy that works in the corner store to being whatever his role was in that show. So we were talking about, like, and it's, you need that shock value and to delve into this areas where another performer, David Plenty, a man who was the first one to take babies in jars into Australia. He's an Australian performer. He told me of an act that somebody did back then, which he took a mouse, a little white mouse, put it in his mouth, and then chewed it all up, and blood came out and everything. And he said, people were fainting and everything, and it was crazy. And then in the end, he did take the mouse out, and it was just a gag. But this kind of stuff too today, animal cruelty, it does not fly. So if you did this act today and you took the mouse and you pretended to do it or whatever, people would be outraged. And this to play with this, to play it, how far can you push it? So I don't know. It's a scary thing even to talk about with you.
Yes.
What it is. Because I'm thinking of what are the most sort of dangerous issues. And when you can take this and push it, but just not too far, push it just so that people are outraged, but that they go, then they will tell their friend, did you see this? You gotta go and see this.
I recently met some American performers that also do novelty acts, freak acts, and most of them told me that many of them use the freak show for its monstrous aspect, like a way to reclaim the stigma, like for example adopting the figure of the bearded lady to challenge the gender binary, like we said. And among those different people that I interviewed, many said that the freak is today a subversive symbol. Would you say that the freak became some kind of figure of rebellion, and if so, against what? Against some kind of normalcy, against some to push some political ideologies? What would it be?
I think it has this power. I don't know if it historically always have had that aspect to it, but there is a part of it which I know in freak stories or so, that you go, if you're a short person or you have any physical abnormality that is visible no matter what you do, is that sometimes they would say, oh well, it's like I am on display whether I want to or not. And by placing yourself in display and taking control of this image, and you are in a sense then owning it and going, yes, and I am aware of your gaze. Your gaze will always make me an other, no matter what. And by me accepting it and taking steps towards presenting myself in a certain way within this, I accept that I am different, and then I present it in a way. You then reclaim some of that power also. So, yeah, I think there's something in that. But and I think there is power in this of being different, and by claiming it. So I think that you can absolutely be a rebel, and of course then in today's society, which is more than ever focused on presentation of self. It's because of social media. We all are, in a sense, curating ourselves not just through our daily life, where we put on clothes and go out and interact, which always has been, like, what's his name, Goffman, who wrote the presentation of self in everyday life, but that this has always been the case, but now we have one more level of abstraction here, where it's not just a presentation of self in everyday life, it's also a curated presentation of self through digital images, digital videos. You are combining it in this exactly the same way that I do. I go, okay, I do this act, but if I put this music on, it makes you feel one way. When I do my tennis act, I have this really cheesy Herb Albert music in the background, so that it goes with the funny bumbling clown, even when I say, I will do it this location, and this is so that you will relax a little bit and go, this is supposed to be funny, and then you accept me to push you further than I could if I put on Marilyn Manson or Rammstein, and I go, this is going to be the most scary thing, or whatever. So in this, and society is usually pushing, females in one direction, and the algorithm is pushing you in one direction or so for a particular type of beauty.
Yeah.
And the men are being pushed in another one. I am not interested in violence or in car crashes or this kind of stuff, but it comes in my feed, no matter what. And they know if I scroll down and I go, oh, what's this? Oh, that's disgusting. But they know, oh, he stopped. Next time there will be 2 of this. So they're grabbing your base instincts or so. So if you if the algorithm or everything is pushing you in one direction, it is a sort of a rebellious act to go, beauty is more things, like like Camus, or everyone talks about beauty is not just what we think of as beautiful, but there can be a particular kind of beauty in a romantic sense of the death of a loved one or whatever. It's agonizing, but it still has its sense of beauty. And to then make this crazy makeup or whatever, like the sort of drag makeup or so, whether you do that as a woman or a man, like you are exaggerating the features to be crazy, but it is in a sense taking what I know you want me to do and deliberately going against it. And I think there is a rebellious act in that, absolute. But when you open this question, I can't remember the exact words, but that the main thing that you're presenting is the freak and the shock factor. And when we were working with the Happy Sideshow, which we did from 1999 or 2000, I think, till for 5 years or so, we worked hard to go beyond this idea of just showing that freaky kind of stuff. Because to me, I feel like this is the level 1 of you are going with what is already inherent in the freak act. When you swallow a sword, people will think, oh, that's disgusting. So my challenge is then, how do I transform your experience of this so that you don't just see the first level of, oh, this is disgusting, but I do it by talking, without going in detail, but like Rudolf Otto, who talks about the sacred as being mysterium fascinans et tremendum, of like it's mysterious. The mystery is that it is fascinating and repulsive at the same time. So and to me, this is the description of what sword swallowing is. If you look at it from a point of view, you don't want to watch, but you can't not watch. And this encounter, and by saying a couple of things like this so I build everything up until you know that I'm going to swallow the sword. And I talk about mystery, but I do it by being silly. I do stuff and they don't know what's going on. And I produce it doesn't matter what I do in the act, but I set up and I say, mysterious, what is it? No one knows. What's going on? I don't know. All of these things, and I do magic and I do a few different things, and I have a sword. And by the time I pull the sword out, they still don't know when I chop a cucumber off my hat and it flies into the audience, and they don't know. But when I take the sword up and I put it on my lips and go, then in this moment they know what's going on. And now I have setups, I've talked about mystery, but I think they think I talk about mystery because I'm doing silly magic. Not necessarily that you know what I do, because I'm doing magic, but I present it in a funny way. So I talk about mystery, so they think it's a joke, and then in the end I go, because this is what the mystery is, really, when you meet it. And then I say, I hope that when you see it now, that you can have this in mind. So the fact that we don't understand everything makes life more beautiful. And if you don't understand what you're about to see now, I try to keep this in mind, which they don't understand the sword swallowing. So what I am then trying to do is to reframe the freakiness to make it into an act of devotion. I say some stuff about you take the mystery of this unknown and you put it inside yourself. So with a few minutes of talking, as I have that strong attention, because now they go, oh, he's going to swallow the sword, I do a little bit that connects to the previous but reframes it in a way that I am proposing to them that what I am doing is a kind of sacred action. In the ancient way of what the mystery is, or so of being awesome, like it's both awful and also awesome, like in the wrath of Jehovah, when people experience an angel or so, it's beautiful but also terrifying. So so this was with this idea of what, and part of the reason why this works, I think, is because when somebody is proposing to swallow half a meter of sword in your mouth, then they feel it. You can't escape it. It's real now. So now I'm actually grabbing them, and I'm, in a sense, they can feel the mystery too, and they are asking, why are you doing this? And in that sense, maybe the participation is stronger, in the same way that you do when you watch somebody walk on the high wire. You can feel it. Your hands get wet and your heart goes faster, because you go, I don't want to watch somebody die. This is too much for me almost, because it's a chance that she's going to fall down. And so I think that the power of the freak show one is to be the act of rebellion of just going, and the other one is the act of that you have the possibility of take the power which lies at the heart of every freak show act, whether it is the person in the cage or whatever, like used to be a big part of it, or it is the dwarf or the short person that is, and you can take this power that you have of human interest. We look at these things and we go, what is it? And like, it's like you are, and then take this power, and you can then, because you have their attention, you can potentially transform it and make it larger, or so. Yeah.
It
So
really
I'm
makes me
going on
think
off your topic.
two of your episodes about art and entertainment and the art of entertainment, and it makes me think about something you've said about entertainment being immediate, being something that should be accessible, that should not require effort from the audience. But as we speak, I see that in many sideshow performances, spectators, the audience, sometimes looks away because they project onto themselves the pain they imagine they would feel if they were in your place, like with the sword swallowing, or even the tennis gig. It's like, oh my god, it must feel so bad, it must hurt. It's something like I see, for example, on talent shows, people, when they see sideshow acts, they grimace, they watch in fascination, but they also start to peek through the fingers as if to keep their distance. So my question would be, do you think it actually involves an effort to be a member of the audience of such a sideshow act. And could we think that the sideshow act, the sideshow performance, is more the communion between the performer and the audience, is some kind of shared physical trial?
Yeah, I totally believe that is, I believe that what you just said there, a shared sort of, I believe that it is a participatory event. When you have reached the apotheosis, the biggest possible of realm of what a performance is when you have made this connection. And sometimes to make this connection through poetry, at least a certain type of poetry. Some poetry is more Charles Bukowski or Billy Collins or so, or maybe more storytelling things, so they're easier to get into. But there are more metaphysical poets, so it takes you, if you listen to it the first time, you get nothing. But maybe there is enormous wisdom in the poem, and you can't meet it. With the Freakshow, you are grabbing them straight as you go, as it is going, I'm going to swallow the sword. And now you have their attention in this particular kind of way. And the idea, what I mean with it being effortless, is that the performer's taking you by the hand in a way and leading you through it to bring you along. Because part of my main acts that I perform around the world is the tennis act with the dislocation thing, and the dislocation thing when I sit on top of the buckets, and a sword swallowing act, and an act where I talk about what the difference is between circus and freak show. I should send you this act on a video link. I talk what the difference is, and I balance a spoon and catch it behind my ear as an example of circus, and I go, the feeling you have when you watch this is the feeling of circus. It's beautiful, impressive, and surprising. When it catches behind the ear, surprising that somebody spends so much time doing something so useless. But then I do the freak show, and I put the spoon up my nose, and I pretend to balance it or so. And so that means that my main acts that I perform for a real general public, is all essentially freak show acts. But I have taken them and transformed them in such a way that people like them everywhere. I bring them by the hand, and the tennis act, there are moments in there where I do the dislocation, but the act is, when I do it live, it's 11 and a half minutes. And it goes 6-7 minutes before there is a dislocation. All the rest is just the tension. I say I'm going to do it, and then there's more chaos. And then I re-mention it. And then it doesn't happen, and the biggest amount of chaos comes. So then, and when I finally get up again and we do it, then there's been so much physical comedy that we are hopefully now in the terrain of Buster Keaton and Chaplin, where so I prepare them for it. And that's what I mean with it being effortless or so. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't have a threshold. But it means that it also means that the different venues, the different places where you encounter the freak show, will allow the performer to be in one way or another. Because there are ways to present freak show. You can present it as torture, in a way. And then it's agonizing to watch. And you can introduce also misogynism, where there's a guy that is putting pins into a woman who says she doesn't want it. Which is like, oh, even if this is this woman's act, she puts pins through herself, which is a freak show act. But you change it and you put the power thing in and you do all of this, and then for many different places this would not be okay. But then you take it within like Torture Garden, or when you have this BDSM aspect to it, and it's within the consensual understanding that the performance is going on, and then this act could be amazing. But it would not go on Le Plus Grand Cabaret du Monde. This would be wrong in this context. But maybe in the right way, a woman or a man or something could put the pin through themselves. But you are only allowed to go in the certain different venues where you perform. You can only take them to a certain way. And I hope that like the skilled performer is to be able to meet their audience where they're at, take their expectations, and then hopefully bring them in and push them to the edge of what is possible. And within the different realms, whether you're doing the hanging of the hooks as a sacred Native American ritual or so, is completely different than when you do it as something else in a tattoo convention or so. So I think there is a great power in how you can, the different ways that you perform it and how far you can take it. I think I've lost a little bit exactly where your question started, but...
Oh, it's great. But you said that when you perform, you take the audience by the hand. They have to follow your guidance and to into this communion of the performance. But it is often said, and I think you said it also on one of your episodes, that in the sideshow performance, there are those in the audience who are in on the jokes, and those who aren't. They say also that a sucker is born every minute. So do you think that even though you take them by the hand, people are going to freak shows, to sideshow performances for the pleasure of being tricked, for being deceived in these shows? And do you think that this idea of a mutually agreed deception is something that is at the heart of the sideshow?
No, I don't think so. I think deception lies at the heart of magic. So when you're watching any kind of conjuring act, any kind of magic show, magic performance, the deception will be part of it, acknowledged and understood or so. Even if the magician never says it is deception, you kind of know that you go in. But of course there is the blurry edge there as well, of where it goes into the religious. Uri Geller famously claimed he had supernatural powers, which made the magicians expose him or attack him, because now he is no longer saying he's a magician, and they go, yes, you do. This is the thing. So, but I think there is deception within the freak show, and maybe even more what Robert Bogdan calls aggrandization. It's to exaggerate what is there. The giant would have even though he might be 2 meters, 2 meters high and a half, they would put him in the big shoes with the big heel and with the big hat. Maybe the big fur hat of the Russians, maybe a big cowboy hat. You see the pictures from so not only would they be, but there would be something more as well. And when you go on, and you would stand up on the stage, and maybe when he walks on, just the dramaturgy of it, he would walk in and stand on a box, and then the talker would stand just a little bit behind or on the floor to present, so that you have the man pointing even more upwards, because you want it to be larger than life. But I don't think that the deception was a part of it in the same way. But I think we also have to remember that there is historically, at least, because now it's not so common anymore, and it's a common theme of the books of saying by the time of the 1980s, but then it was already happened. Then it was, but over time, as science grew, an understanding of what was going on with freaks, with people who are born different, visibly different, as that there was a transformation then from the time of, let's maybe say 1900 to 1980. Over those years, there's a sort of decline from them being a marvel of nature or an amazing and unusual anomaly or something, or the missing link or whatever, from these kind of language to them being diseased or deformed people in a way that it becomes, and we go, oh no, this is a problem with your glands, or this is this, or whatever, and that's in line with that, the freak sort of change. And the people who are born different, people will all, of course, wonder, is it real or not? But I don't think that this was the point of the freak show, because with some of these freaks, maybe the blow-off, the bit that you could pay extra for in the end, would be maybe to come and touch the flesh of the conjoined twins, that you actually could come up and see, this is real, it's not, and you could, or things like this, where there is one extra thing. But anyway, Doug, I don't think that deception is the point of it. I would say that the freak show definitely has that, but yeah. Do you think deception is a part of it also, or do you think because?
No, I think there is a part of deception when I try to think what is specific to the freak show, to the sideshow. When I try to define it for my students, when I try to define it in my work, even though it's really difficult because it's a show that is always evolving, I try to situate it between magic and body art, in the sense that it takes from magic, which is a play on illusion, a play sometimes on deception, and the other part, the body art, it takes from the shocking imagery, from the extreme, and for me there is a tension between fiction and reality. So not really deception, but always, is it true? Is it not?
Yeah, you are correct. As much, I think it was maybe when you say that it's the core thing, because you are completely right. I think it is definitely an aspect, and to place it within magic and body art, I think this is a good definition, because a lot of what's going on, or is not a good definition, but a good placement of it, because because when I'm saying the aggrandization is a form of deception, and I guess in magic too, you not always, but you often are presenting it as if it is real.
Yes.
I actually make this thing levitate. So it's like, but it is not so far down this spectrum as American wrestling, for instance.
Yes.
Where the suspension of disbelief or the deception is less hidden. But even within that, there's the, from when it was all real to there is more, they're a little bit more acknowledging that it is also theatrical, because there too it's a real person jumps and actually falls on the floor. A real person is slammed, even if they are consensually doing it and helping each other to make it happen also. So yeah, there is definitely an element of deception. I have to backpedal a little bit on being strong and saying no, I don't think it's the core thing. And the reason why I said that is because I think I was thinking from the point of view of it's like it's always been presented as if it's real. But also, if you think of the classic acts of Freakshow as being the Melvin Buckard's blockhead act, or lying on the nails, or swallowing swords, there is, or putting a pin through your flesh, they will there as well ask, is this real?
Yes.
And a lot of what you can do is to present it as if it's, you come over and you can get someone to see it's actually going through or whatever, like it's to show that it's real. And the reason why you can do that, and this is also similar to the dramaturgy of magic.
Yeah.
Here I have a hand, it's completely empty, but now come touch, it's empty, yes, man. Here's a coin behind your ear. And this, one of them is actually, like the sword swallower is actually wanting you to know that is real, but the magic is mimicking this particular part of it, of using the dramaturgy of showing. How do you show that something is real, if you were to show it was real? And then the magic does all those things, but in such a way that it is still not real, but they mimic the process of that. And then, because there is, in much of what's being presented in Freakshow, the skill that is presented, putting the pins in, lying on the broken glass, swallowing the sword, it is what it is said to be. What you see is what it is.
Yeah. One of my research hypotheses is that in the Freakshow, mainly in the 19th century, but we can still see it today in current performances, is that the different characters in the performance, the talker, the freak, and the other talker sometimes, they do not share the same degree of reality. By this I mean, I think that the talker is more extra diegetic than the freak. He takes the audience by the hand to accompany them into the fictional world, and the freak is in this fiction because he becomes a freak when he's seen, when he's on display, when he performs. But those different characters are a way to step into the fiction.
Yeah, brilliant. I completely agree. And I think this has to do then with the idea that to be entertained, it needs to be effortless. If it's difficult for you to go, you will not like it. And for the freak to be able to be as freaky as possible, you have the talker which brings you into it, which tells this little bit of story, whether it is found on the island of such and such, of the island of Miss... and this brings you in, whatever is the fashion of the time, to approach this thing, because that would be what the talker would do. Bring you into the world and I believe you have the performer, the showman, and the audience, and the show is the participatory attention that they share. We pay attention together at one thing, and this phenomena which happens in the shared attention I think of as the world of shows or so. It's the not real, it's the imagination or so. But the beautiful thing with the freak is that the freak in itself, by being real, if we think of it as a person who's completely tattooed in the face like the great Omi, or it's somebody who's born different, it's somebody with a short person, then the short person and or the tattoos are in a sense the proof of the greater imaginal creation. Sorry, you do one.
And how does it translate in your own shows? Because you are your own talker, so it must be more difficult to play those different characters because you're only one person on the stage at the moment of your show.
And I do it like the most the first act that I often do is to do the tennis or so. And in this one I start to introduce myself, and the way that I do it is slightly self-deprecating or so, and I am odd and I look odd in the short pants, very short pants, and I look very funny already. So when I come out and I say so the overall idea of this is that I use the structure and the subversion of my own what I have said. So I come out and I say, and here we go, blah, 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 and I was born like this with the ability to do bend and contort, and I'm going to squeeze through these tennis rackets, and it goes like this. And it has a certain rhythm, and then when I am going to go through, then I do a whole lot of jumping around, but do almost nothing. So now they go, because when I make the presentation, I go, okay, and now I'm going to squeeze through these rackets, and it goes like this. And then it has had a certain pace where you think, oh, okay, this is going to take 3-4 minutes, and then it's finished. Because I can see the pace. And then when I do the first one, it's like, oh, this is something different happened now. It sounded like I was just going to do it right now, but after all of this jumping around, I have done nothing. So this is much more difficult, or much more. So, and from there, the chaos of it, it introduces slowly more and more. So I'm doing the role of inviting them in and explaining what's going on, and I build it. And the biggest amount of chaos and everything happens when it's almost over. So it has the structure of going, and it builds anticipation, and then, like, I'm going to squeeze through the rackets, and then I go, well, I can understand if not everyone's impressed, because I throw confetti at this moment, and go, I can understand you're not impressed now. But I'm going to make it more difficult. I'm going to put the leg through. And now it's the first time when they go, they thought it was disappointing, but then I introduced the idea of the leg, and then they go, oh, this is probably also a joke. And then it turns out it's not. And then the chaos starts when I go. So I'm using the idea of taking them by the hand and lead them in and say something maybe they don't want to see, but it's a joke. So they don't know each time when it's a joke or not. But the idea is that I am bringing them in, and I'm turning it more and more crazy as I go. And we performed for a while with the Happy Sideshow with the guy, we called him Sideshow Josh. He was born with short legs, with no knees, and arms with just a couple of fingers, not from thalidomide or not focomelia like this, I don't know what it was. But I was thinking at that time of the difference of how I was presenting myself, or the journey for the audience of who I was versus for him. Because for him, we had him, because he don't have any knees, he can't, when he sits down or lies down, he can't sort of stand up. But because his legs are so short, he has this strange technique of sitting on the ground, and when he leans forward like this, at some point his legs are so short and stiff that he just tips up to standing. And I was like, and then he was a smoker, and when he smokes, he takes the cigarette out and he puts it in his mouth, and then he holds with these hands with only a couple of fingers, this like a digit on this one, and he holds it in some funny way and lights it then. So the act that we had him do, in a sense, was he comes out on stage, and in this moment he is a freak completely, and we presented him as a unique and born like no other and all that, and then he comes out, but then the act that we do with him is him doing something very strange. Very normal. He goes in, and then he sits down, and then he gets the cigarette out and he puts it in, and then he stands up in this strange way, and then he lights a cigarette. So in a sense, his journey is like from going freak, strange, to doing something normal in the end. But mine is I come out and I look like normal. And I can do a few things with my joints, and through my act, I stand out then at the end as I'm going, oh, this guy is actually a freak, or he's crazy at the end of it. So it's almost like these two different sort of journeys, and that struck me as interesting. So of course the freak could also come out and lie on a bed of nails or something, but almost because they are who they are, there's nothing that they can do that can make you more freaky, more other, more confronting than that he takes his shirt off and he's just standing there in his pants, and you go, like, because there's something there, I don't know exactly what it is, and I know that, I can't remember which book it is, but it's, at the time, in the 80s. It also comes out in, I think, maybe the last Sideshow or something, the book that talks about Ward Hall. And he works with a short person who had been eating fire with him for a very long time. And sometime in the 80s, it became illegal to exhibit deformity in America. So this guy, and the kind of regulation that's started to cover it, you probably already know this, but that the regulation was the kind of regulation that would prohibit sexual acts on display. That it's, I don't know what that's called exactly, but it's acts of moral turpitude or something like this. And I was thinking that there is something when he then takes his shirt off in our act, and Matt Fraser also performed with us. And when Matt Fraser take his shirt off, and he did some karate things and smashed bricks with his head, it was crazy. But when he comes out and he takes off his shirt, and you just see him, who at the first look, he's a very good looking man. And then he takes that off and you look at it, and he's sort of going like, there's something scary now. And I could almost understand why the pornography laws was used against this, because we feel like we're watching something that we shouldn't watch, or like it's got a graphic nature to it, or so. Now I don't remember anymore where the question started, but I find that sort of fascinating, the two sort of journeys. And this was also something that I spoke with Matt Fraser about, because he would, when he did his show Seal Boy Freak, he was doing a lot. He was also doing normal things, not doing freaky things. He didn't swallow a sword, didn't put a pin in his flesh or any of those things, because he don't need to. He would play the drums, and he would shave, because this was the act. This was what CeeLo did. And of course, when I got the guy to stand up to smoke the cigarette, it was of course inspired by this tradition of having the freak do something normal. And it is also like there's nothing he can do that would be more crazy than existence.
It's interesting listening back to these episodes. It's funny to be on the end where I am the one that's being asked the questions. I guess that happens a little bit when Jay is asking me things, but then he's asking them stuff that he is inspired by things that we've already talked about. So it's interesting to hear me try to figure stuff out as I go. And also it has been pointed out to me that last episode I forgot to do my normal sign-off. That might be the only time in the 130 episodes or so that we recorded where that has happened. But if you were the ones who listened to that and missed out, then please subscribe to make sure to not miss out on me saying it for every episode from here on in. So until then, until you've subscribed, take care of yourself and those you love, and I hope to see you along the way.